Held another hearing about the insurrection on January 6th at the Capitol. Two aides for Vice President Mike Pence described him as being pressured to claim that President Trump won the election or send votes back to states hoping they would overturn them, despite there being no legal basis for that. That was before and even during the attack on the Capitol. A judge, Michael Ludwig, a retired conservative federal judge, in fact, who advised Pence afterward, says there would be no legal basis for the vice president to do that, what he was asked to do. Ludwig says that Trump and his allies are still a threat, and not just because of the insurrection attempt, he says, but because of the next election. It was revealed that during the attack, people searching for the vice president were actually within about 40 feet of him at one point and missed him by just minutes. The testimony of those closest to former President Trump could have political implications for both parties, but to what extent? CBS 17's Russ Bowen is here now, and Russ, that includes candidates running here in North Carolina.
Particularly, Rod, in those races that are super close. Political experts say it could end up being an advantage for Democrats and possibly Republicans, too. The early criticisms were loud and clear.
They just want to be partisan. They just want to continue to attack the former president.
But as the televised hearings lay out what unfolded before and during January 6, 2021, elected Republicans have not been as vocal, including North Carolina's own congressional delegation who voted to not certify the election.
At first, they were very critical of the committee and what it was trying to do. But given the approach the January 6th committee has taken by using the testimony of former Trump officials, most of them are Republican, it has caused many of the critics of the January 6th committee to have no response.
Although it's too early to tell, political scientist David McClennan says it could be similar to what we saw 50 years ago. When the Watergate break-in was first reported, Republicans stood with Richard Nixon for more than a year. But the subsequent hearings and finally Nixon's voice on the White House tapes that implicated him in the cover-up changed everything.
But we don't know. It's sort of like the Watergate hearings. They've been going on for a while until the explosive tapes and things came out, and all of a sudden, things changed. And something similar could happen if there was even more evidence that really points the finger at the former president.
That could work in favor of Democrats in the fall election, but Democrats face tough headwinds. The party of the sitting president also typically loses the midterm, and Republicans could see testimony against Trump as an advantage if it decreases his hold on the party.
Particularly as Joe Biden's approval ratings are down, the country's having some problems that the Biden administration is being blamed on. Not to have the distraction of Donald Trump might be a very positive thing for Republicans.
But so far, if the primaries tell us anything at this point, it's that an endorsement from former President Trump still holds a whole lot of weight. We saw it in North Carolina with Bo Hines win and Ted Budd's win. And Rod, there are several who have won in other states as well who still contend there was election fraud. They won those primaries despite the evidence.
Yeah, these midterms are going to be very, very interesting, as well as the rest of these hearings. All right, thank you very much.